Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu wa alhamdulillah. So I want to answer a couple of little questions and just kind of discuss a couple of things in detail. And due to this, I had to bust out like my old look. This how I used to be in like 2015 to 2018. These throws, by the way, right? So I got a bunch of throws with the collars on them. And I started wearing bow ties, and I used to wear like the sweater vest with different colors in them with my bow ties because it was really I was a tax professional. So we had to wear ties, but I like bow ties better. So once I left there, I had all these bow ties. And even when I was in college, like I went to school for radio and TV broadcasting. So when I had to make my ID for my press pass, I got on like an all black bow tie with an all black shirt, right, and a kufi. So bow ties was always my thing, and I'm putting it on today because we discussed certain things with the Nation of Islam, and for those who really know what's what, I was never a member, never would be one. But they understand the meaning of the red bow tie. I just had red bow ties. You know what I'm saying? Red always been my favorite color since I was a kid, right? And we don't have bloods here, so it's not a blood thing. But it's funny me thinking about this because when I used to wear this to the masjid, I always wore them the Friday on Jumu'ah. So like by me, I always look like a Muslim everywhere I go. So I had my bow ties, my sweater vest, bringing a little bit of a dignified look to the Islamic clothing. And these individuals used to be mad. Man, we left that bow tie stuff with the nation. I was never in the nation. This don't represent the Nation of Islam to me. Wallahi, this is the type of stuff they can say every week. Man, you always got different bow ties. Hating on me hard, right? Then next thing you know, years later, I'm looking at people in family pictures dressed exactly like me without the throw. The little sweater vest, bow tie, exact same glasses. Yeah, it taking family pictures, but they hated on me. Or they all out of town, all white shirt on, black bow tie, kufi. Same cats who was hating on me. But when I'm not around, they dressed exactly like me. So sometimes, man, you have to realize, man, sometimes hate, no. Admiration comes in the form of hate. See, sometimes, man, the same people that be hating on you, they admire you. And sometimes they want you to feel the same way about them that they feel about you. But they have to hide the way they feel about you. So sometimes it's manifested in anger. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just leaving that little side note to say, man, sometimes, man, you just have to overlook people when you realize that they really hating on you. It's a difference when people telling you the truth about what's to you, or they just hating on you, or they got ulterior motives and they feeling some type of way because you just not into what they into. And you can always tell the difference because they'll mimic your style. That's why they used to say, what they used to call it, the best form of flattery is imitation. And I be like, out of all the people who right now in the Muslim community in this city that feel some type of way about me, every last one of them got a small piece of me that they tried to outdo me in, but it didn't work for them because I was serious and they was in competition with me. How do you compete against somebody that's not competing with you and still lose? And then you want to feel some type of way. So that just made me think about that because I got this bow tie on. And just a little message, man, for individuals that's dealing with a lot of unnecessary hate and you ain't done nothing wrong. So I'm a Dalil person. So I like to deal with Dalil. And to my mans, who be in the comments, and I only want to address it because I'm starting to feel like he taking certain things personal, And I don't know him personally. I don't even know what city he's in. Just from different things in the comments, I could tell, he said he grew up in the Nation of Islam. He referred to himself as being a part of the Wardeen community. And I don't have nothing against him. And I just don't want this to feel like it's a back and forth between me and him when I'm having conversations, because it's starting to feel like he feel that way. And I'm so used to that because the community that I'm in, he remind me of most of the African Americans that's here. It almost seemed like a going back and forth, because I'm answering questions that other people ask me, or we talking about other things that's here, and when I'm talking about it, I think he feel personally attacked when that's not the case. But see, one thing, like not to bring a rapper into it, but like when you had Tupac, he had a formula, right? He would rap about certain things that would connect with the youth and blacks in the inner city, right? No matter where it was. So the message was universal. He would talk about a little bit of something that everybody could relate to. So when you start to go through like imam training and you dealing with certain things in the deen, and you talked about how to give religious talks and khutbahs, sometimes, and the Rasul was good at this, to speak in a way where everybody kind of feel like you talking to them. Now the bad part is, the ones who's guilty, they're going to get upset about it, but instead of checking themselves, they're going to want to check you. And like in this case, we on YouTube. You might not even know them. Just like, for instance, I'm going to bring this little bit up because I'm just addressing issues. In this city, certain people spreading a narrative talking about, they feel like I was talking about a brother who took his wife to the karaoke bar. And, they were saying little things to other people like he could take her to the karaoke bar where it's all this drinking and all these men smoking weed, they drinking. She may possibly be drinking, according to what was getting back to me, right? So they was like, well, she's not Muslim, so he could take her to that. So when it's coming back to me, I'm just sitting back saying, but is he Muslim? Can he be there? But the thing is, I didn't know the man took his wife to a karaoke bar. I didn't know that. I was talking about some things on YouTube. I was actually speaking about somebody in Philly. You know what I'm saying? And I did kind of address it before. I know that brother. She's not the first woman that I've known for him to be with that didn't cover up and dress like that. You know what I'm saying? But individuals want to spread a narrative because they like to keep conflict going. So, because they taking certain things personal that don't have nothing to do with them. Just like I'm feeling like my man want to do, so I want to kind of squash it, and it's different. It's kind of difficult to get me to buy into certain things because I've studied too much. So, and I just seen the comment where the brother asked about Noble Drew Ali. So I'm gonna discuss that, and I'm finna give y'all the real rundown, the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people be missing. Right? So, like by me saying, I'm a Dalil person. So I'm the same way here. I'm not falling into a back and forth because I want to be right and prove somebody else wrong. Let's just get to the truth together. Right? Let's just get to the truth together, because I understand when people just lashing out because they feel some type of way about what's being discussed, and they may take it personal when it don't even have nothing to do with them. So, wallahi, before I didn't even go look at this before, because he made a comment about Malcolm X in 1959. Now, I was always under the understanding that this wasn't true. I do a lot of studying. I've been behind certain closed doors. So I didn't think Malcolm X went to Mecca in 1959. One, all you got to do is listen to the letter that he wrote. This man was sitting up saying, I've never seen this before. Okay? The letter that he wrote, I never seen this before. I didn't even know these type of Muslims existed. So if he had, and this was in 1964. So if he did this in 1959, why was it so new to him in 1964? You see what I'm saying? So I said, okay, maybe it's something that I missed. So I said, I'll just go look it up. Because I could be wrong. But I wasn't under that impression. Plus, like I said, the letter that he wrote. And while I'm pulling it up, I'm going to address the other thing. Like he said, everybody in the Nation of Islam knew that there was white Muslims. During the time when Malcolm X was alive and during Elijah Muhammad time, no, they didn't. They only thought Muslims was Arabs. They actually taught in the lessons that white people couldn't be Muslims because they was devils. So there was no such thing as a white Muslims. So when Malcolm X was referring to white Muslims in Mecca, he wasn't talking about white Arabs. He's seeing people from France, from the UK that was white Muslims. Even right now in America, in like the 2000s, even a white Muslim in the 2000s was still a rarity. You still, other than some growing as Shiites, white Muslims is still a rarity as far as white American Muslims. So in 1964, when Malcolm X was referring to seeing a white, in 1964, no, all the Nation of Islam did not know that it was white Muslims. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. As far as white Americans. Now, white Arab skinned, they thought Muslims was just Arabs. That was the reason why they took on a narrative from Noble Drew Ali and created a black Islam. You understand? I know Lost found Muslim lessons on why they said white people can't even be Muslims. I even brought up the question where it said in the lessons, how long did it take Moses? How many years did it take for Moses to just civilize a devil, so-called white people? And then they had to be civilized and had to go through a whole process of a certain amount of years before you can even consider giving them dawah to be a Muslim. So no, it's in the teachings. White people can't even be Muslim because they devils. See, some people can say a lot of things to other people, but they can't pull that off over on me because I mastered the lessons as a 5%er. I didn't even know they was Nation of Islam lessons till like 2 years later. But I knew that Putin, who was Clarence 13X, right, who was the one who basically started and trained the FOI. He was a Green Beret. He was the first person that teach the FOI, the Fruit of Islam, the security. That was Putin's idea. The way that he formed them up, the skills that he taught them, that started with Putin. But Putin kept drinking and gambling, so he got kicked out of the Nation of Islam. Now, one thing, that's one of the things where I talk about how us black Muslims, certain things that we start to pick up that's in our stuff that came from these pseudo groups. If you a member of the Nation of Islam and you a Muslim, right, under the teaching of Quran and Sunnah, how the heck do you get suspended? Huh? I'm just going to look at another Muslim and say, hey man, you know what? You suspended from being a Muslim. If the Nation of Islam ain't some type of group, some type of clique, some type of Hizbiyah, and it's all about Quran and Sunnah, how can you be kicked out of it? How can you be suspended from it? You know what? You can't be Muslim for 90 days. You can't come to no mosque. You can't come to none of our gatherings. You suspended for 90 days. For 90 days, you no longer Muslim. And what I say, a lot of people pick that stuff up. That's something right now. That's something that a certain group of the Salafis think they could do. You kicked off the minhaj. You're not Salafiyah right now. We can't talk to you. We can't listen to you. We can't salam you. You garbage to us. You don't get no Muslim rights. And if you go to a masjid, everybody else in that masjid and that whole masjid is garbage. See, this is Nation of Islam foolishness, B. This Nation of Islam garbage. If this was Quran and Sunnah, this is something that Allah Azza wa Jal sent and made Elijah Muhammad a messenger, which you got to be a prophet to be a messenger, the true and living prophet and messenger as he claimed it. How can you get kicked out of it? You got to get a card to be. You got to be a card carrying member. This is something that you can get kicked out of, and sometimes murdered. So what I did was, just to double check, we can go and look at the timeline of the life of Malcolm X. What I was talking about was from memory. Wallahi, I didn't look that up. I just looked it up today to see what he said. Because if I was wrong, I was going to say, you know what? I was wrong. But I'm not discussing when he went. I'm talking about when he took the Shahada, when he said out of his own mouth that everybody in the world knows that he switched over to traditional, what they refer to as traditional Islam, so that they could come up with a title called Al-Islam. Al-Islam is what we practice. They practice Orthodox Islam. But Al-Islam is traditional Islam. Come on, man, get out of here with the wordplay. Y'all ain't fooling nobody except for people who just don't know no better. So we can look at the timeline. So you can go on the internet. They got a whole timeline of Malcolm X life. And it's like when me discussing why you didn't ever get no Islamic dawah, why did you never get these type of teachings from him and this, that, and the third, I'm finna explain to y'all why. And that's not to take away from the greatness of Malcolm X as a person. And not talking about how he practices deen, but as far as his teaching. And one thing that we do, we attach ourselves to Malcolm X as one of our heroes. And when we start quoting him and talk about stuff he said, it's Nation of Islam stuff. It's not Quran and Sunnah stuff. And then we are taking and run with it because we consider it Black Islam. You know what I'm saying? So you can go through his timeline. It even go from 1958, Malcolm and Betty, they had their first child, right? 1959, the spring, the summer, Malcolm make his first trips abroad. He visits Ghana, he visits the Sudan, he visits Nigeria, he visits Iran, he goes to Syria, he goes to Egypt, and he goes to United Arab Republic. But illnesses, he got sick over there, which he said that he got poisoned by the CIA. He said that he got poisoned by the CIA. So because he was poisoned, he never got to travel to Mecca. He never went to Mecca in 1959. And then he went and met with the president in Egypt. This is a timeline of Malcolm X. These from his own words and from the people who was tracking him. In 1959, the man never got to go to Mecca or Medina because he was poisoned. Well, he said he was poisoned because of illness. So in 1959, and this, like I said, this isn't to, I'm not trying to come at the brother. I'm not trying to create a go back and forth. But instead of absorbing the information in the video, the first thing he do is pop up and say, wrong again. Malcolm X went to Mecca in 1959. No, he didn't, sir. No, he didn't. And then say it's all type of information out there you could go and look. When we go and look, we see, even with the information that's out there, he didn't go to Mecca in 1959. And see, this is the funny thing about Nation of Islam people. Because Malcolm X ended up having such a great name, they still want to claim him as a Muslim, as making him Muslim, when what you get the Nation of Islam, they're not Muslims. They Muslim on the wordplay. We Muslims because anybody who submit to the will of Allah is a Muslim. Even if you Christian and you up on what you on, and you up on a real good Christian, you really a Muslim, you just don't know it. But that's not true. Even from what I know of, you don't even take Shahada to become a member of the Nation of Islam. They actually have a form of a testimony of faith, but it got Elijah Muhammad name attached to it. So how's they Muslim? Then we'll go further. We'll just push it forward to 1964. Right? 1964 in January is when when Malcolm X started talking about Elijah Muhammad was an adulterer. So the hidden part is what he's really referring to is Elijah Muhammad tricking these young girls. They think they doing this for Islam. I'm not going to go into his character and what he had going on with these women. Right? And I done seen the videos. I done talked to people who was in the Nation of Islam, and a lot of them said that Malcolm X really got mad because one of the girls he wanted to marry, Elijah Muhammad, scooped her off the slab and got her pregnant. And she was the one who told him what Elijah said about him, that one day you was going to rise and turn against him. And that's exactly what he did. You know what I'm saying? So these were certain little details that was put in. And like wallahi, I watch countless hours of videos from people who was in the Nation of Islam. His Fard Muhammad's secretary. I'm going to tell y'all something else. In this city where I'm at now, right outside of Chicago, Fard Muhammad's granddaughter was here married to one of the brothers. So that stuff about Fard Muhammad, this was his granddaughter, real true life granddaughter. His daughter kid. She looked just like him. And it was true. Just like Ward Dean said, Fard Muhammad really was the imam of one of the Ward Dean's masjids in California. He died in like 1973 or something like that. No. It wasn't 1973. That's my mistake. It was like I want to get the years mixed up, but he lived a very long time. He lived longer than Elijah. A lot longer. So just to go into the detail, so in 1964, in January, is when Malcolm X started saying this stuff about him, right? So he was removed as the national representative, as the minister of the Harlem Temple, number 7, right? So he started to stay with Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. So then in March of 1964, he was suspended indefinitely. After he was suspended indefinitely, he announced plans that he was going to form his own organization called Muslim Mosque Incorporated. Now, this is why I want to speak on that point. He hadn't became Sunni Muslim at the time. So some of the talks of he's going to steal the majority of the Nation of Islam. So they was viewing this as it's going to be a branch off of the Nation of Islam. Because this is the only teachings he know. He only know Nation of Islam teachings. He don't know no other Islam. So now he's going to start his own Nation of Islam, and they're going to refer to it as Muslim Mosque Incorporated. But because he needed financial backing, and he also knew that he knew security because he knew the Nation of Islam will get with them groceries. They eat your food, baby. And he knew that. They ate Clarence 13X because he broke off and started the 5%ers. Once he got that building and got some backing from the mayor or whatever, they ate his food. Clarence 13X disappeared, never to be seen again. What his buddy did. They shot Clarence 13X up the same way they did Malcolm X. Unsolved mystery to this day. Because that's the 5%ers really started off as the 5% Nation of Islam. Because when he left, 5% of them left with him. A lot of people don't know that. They ate his food. So Malcolm X knew what was going to go on. So when he started Muslim Mosque Incorporated, because a lot of people don't know the timeline, they thinking he was talking about starting a masjid. Nah. It was going to be another Nation of Islam temple without the name. It was going to be the first Wharf Deen community. Because that's all Wharf Deen community was. The people who was in the Nation of Islam, my father died, we're going to change the name of it, we're going to put that Bible down and pick up the Quran. But all that other stuff, Adam symbolizes man and all those other teachings, it remained. It remained. So this was in March, right? So then in April, he delivers his famous election year Ballad of the Bullet speech, then leaves for a 5-week tour to Egypt, Lebanon, Liberia, Senegal, Nigeria, Ghana, and Saudi Arabia. This was in April when he left of 1964. Like I said, so he's on a 5-week tour. So by the time he gets to make Hajj is in what? What comes after April? May. So in May, he made Hajj. And that's when he changed his name to El Hajj Malik Shabazz, as well as expressing somewhat different attitude about race in Mecca. And then it goes into what he wrote, the letter that he wrote. This is when he took his Shahada in May, or if you want to say April, but wrapping up the end of his 5-week tour. When he made Hajj, Mecca was at the end of that. In May, he made Hajj for the first time, changed his name. I'm done with the Malcolm X. I'm El Hajj Malik Shabazz, and I took my Shahada and I done transferred over to Sunni Orthodox Islam in 1964. No ifs and buts about it. You could just look at it with the information that's out there. And it isn't to prove who's right or wrong about Malcolm X and this and that. Like, I don't even know where that part even came in about it, but I guess if people have a certain type of love for Elijah Muhammad and feel like I should love him before or more I love Prophet Muhammad, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? But if that's what somebody else to choose to do, like Kun Dina Kun Waliya Deen, that's on them. If that's what you choose to do, so be it. I'm not going to try to talk you out of that or force you to love the Rasul more than him. That's your choice. I'm not even going to tell you that you have to do it. That's your choice. But I'm a person of Dalil, so we can't speak facts. I just want to squash it. When I'm speaking about certain things, I'm not attacking you, Ak. You presented yourself to me as a Muslim, so that's the only thing I can view you as. Whether you have a lot of love for the Nation of Islam, whereas Ward Deen, that's on you. You presented yourself to me as a Muslim, so that's what I'm going to view you as. And we just break it down to the Dalil. So in 1964, April or May, you choose whichever month you want to choose. That's when he became El Hajj Malik Shabazz, right? And took his Shahada and became Sunni Muslim. He left out Islam, right? But then it continues. So basically, it go through all of that, and he didn't come back to America until January of 1965. This is why you don't get a lot of the Islamic teaching. See, so like when you watch movies or when you watch documentaries and they telling their stories, it's really from the letters that he wrote his wife. It's from the letters that he wrote his wife. And some of his friends or phone calls that he made with them. So when they put it in a movie form, you think he's in America. Or that they'll put out the Muslim mosque thing and he's coming back and he's going to let anybody in, where they had these things in the movie. So it looked like this was after the Hajj, and it wasn't. He didn't come back until January of 1965. In January, Malcolm X flies to Los Angeles to meet with the Gladys Towers roots and two Nation of Islam secretaries who are filing paternity suits against Elijah Muhammad. Right? Basically, they want child support. He not taking care of their kids. So he come back to go meet with them. February 4th, he goes to Alabama, and then he leaves the next day and goes to London. He returned from London on February the 13th. February the 14th, his house was bombed. Right? February the 14th, his house was bombed. They wanted their house back. It go into some other things about the threats that came from Elijah. That's February the 14th. On the 21st, 7 days later, they murked him. So this is why you didn't get any Islamic teachings from Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik Shabazz. You understand? He wasn't even here after he took his shahada. And then when he came home, he came home in January. It don't say exactly which date. But then he left again February 4th and went to London. But he was still traveling to get with these sisters who was filing child support claims against Elijah Muhammad. He went to basically some type of Salma student peace thing, you know, some racial undertones, Jim Crow era, Martin Luther King type stuff in Selma, Alabama. Then he went back to London. When he came back, they blew up his crib. And then they killed him a week later. You understand? Because now, at first, you just was going to open a Muslim Mosque Incorporated. And the reason why it has incorporated on it, just like the Nation of Islam was incorporated, because it's a business excuse me, right? It's a business where you're able to profit. So you have to look at the Nation of Islam. Let's say Elijah Muhammad, let's say for instance he had 3,000 followers. The man came out with at least one book a month. They had to sell newspapers. The people that was here from the Nation of Islam that switched to Wardeen told us stories, wallahi, how they used to have their basements full of stacks of newspapers that they couldn't sell, but they still had to pay that money. And if you didn't pay it, you was gonna find out the hard way. You was gonna find out the hard way, you understand? While Elijah Muhammad was still alive, you ain't sell them papers. You paid for it. Even if you didn't even want a paper route, you took it. The money he made from that, one book a month, and you got 3,000 members, and everybody got to buy a copy at $20 a pop, $30 a pop, under Nation of Islam Inc. Incorporated. It wasn't a 501(c) to where it's a non-for-profit organization. So Malcolm X was finna start another one of them. You got to go. You got to go. You understand? You finna start a newspaper and start writing books. You finna cut into the profit margin, baby. You finna cut into the bottom line. Now you done went and made Hajj, and now you done came back and said, hey man, he been lying to us. I made the pilgrimage. Now you want to take people in a whole nother direction, from black Islam to Arab Islam, while you live in our house? Yeah, it was rumblings that he was trying to go back, but a lot of people who was in good graces with him said he was really trying to get his way back in because he knew his head was on a plate, baby. He was trying to live. I seen the newspapers, man. I done seen the documentaries of the way they was threatening that man's life. So, Unfortunately, man, and that's why I'm saying, but because Malcolm X was a great figure, we attach our Islam to him because we want black Islam, but we really got no real Islam from him. When we go to his quotes and we go to his speeches, it's Nation of Islam stuff. That's just reality. And that's all I'm saying. The man wasn't an Islamic scholar. Good brother. I love him, man. And I hate that, he had to go out the way that he went out. But because of what they did to him, they started crumbling. His own son, Ward Dean, really turned on him when Malcolm X got murked like that. So, we're just going to speak in reality. So, when my man who asked, was Noble Drew Ali, was he a real noble man? So, now I'm finna give you the whole rundown. Marcus Garvey started the first Nation of Islam. He had the women wear white, stay on one side. The men wore like a blue suit. The suit and the women dressing, because in Christianity they had a certain form of covering. In original Christianity, that's why you see nuns, they be dressed like Muslim women. This is just law from Sirat al-Mustaqim. The women's supposed to cover. Marcus Garvey started the original Nation of Islam. But it was heavily Christian. It was real heavy on Christianity. Right? A lot of people refer to him as the Garveyites. Marcus Garvey played heavily with the Masons. So anybody who really knows some things about Masonry and how it's structured, right? Even some of the black version, some of the structures and some of the rules and principles that they had, Marcus Garvey laid them out for his organization. So you can almost say they was Masons and Eastern Stars. Alright? But they wasn't carrying a Prince Hall title. Because what a lot of people don't know, you hear Prince Hall name, but when Prince Hall, when they got their first charter, they chartered him and another certain amount of people with them, right? And the name of their first lodge was the African Lodge, right? But they wasn't allowed to teach more than the first 3 degrees, which make you a Master Mason. I'm speaking on this for a reason. For whatever reason, when he died, they had a fallout. Okay? So the people who still stayed, they changed the name to honor him to the Prince Hall Lodge, the Prince Hall Freemasons. But the ones who fell out, they wasn't paying that money for their charter, so they really was losing the charter anyway. So instead of paying that money to Ireland, whichever one funded them, who sold them their charter, they left and went off into the church. The AME, Baptist, the African Methodist or whatever. So they went underground into the church and taught Masonry that way. They just were still using the African tag instead of Prince Hall. Marcus Garvey was on that side of things. That's why they had the church name. Noble Drew Ali, who set up under Marcus Garvey. There's even pictures of him with him. That's why they call Marcus Garvey, the Moors call Marcus Garvey the front runner. So Noble Drew Ali looked at that and seen the money that Marcus Garvey was getting from the government through 501c3s, different type of grants, non-profit grants. But then he started to profit. And once he started to profit and start businesses outside of what he was getting grants for, they locked him up for fraud. They locked him up for fraud. This is the exact same thing that happened with Jeff Ford. They locked him up for fraud. So, Noble Drew Ali, instead of doing it that way, although he was clicked up with an Ahmadiyyan who was teaching him certain things about Islam, But Noble Drew Ali became a Mason. He worked his way up through the ranks of Masonry, right, to where he became a Shriner. When you become a Shriner, they put the Noble on your name. That's why they refer to him as Noble Drew Ali. So the reason, and that's where he got the concept of the fez from the Shriners. So that's where the Noble Drew Ali came from. Yes, he was a real Shriner. Right? Yes, he was a real Shriner. Alright? So anybody who know anything about Masonry, and I'm not gonna put their business out there, but if you know what a perfect lodge is, if you know certain things about numbers and how they play on the numbers, then you'll understand the 7 that he had in a broken circle and referred to as a circle 7 Quran. If you'll understand that sword over the top or under the bottom, depending on which copies that you had, the sword that he represented, and they refer to it as the sword of justice. If you look at the Shriners, it's the same sword that they have with that half moon or whatever. I'm not gonna go into their symbolism, but he was a real Shriner. So because I'm finna give y'all the game. So Masonry is like McDonald's. They're franchises. So in order to get, you can't just jump up and say, hey, I'm McDonald's. You got to go through the corporation. You got to prove that you have money. You got to prove that you have some business. You got to prove that you're legitimate. And then get your lawyers together. And then you can get a franchise. And you have to run your franchise how they say. You can't just have a McDonald's and start selling fried chicken. So through Masonry, you have to go through them the same way and get a charter. It's a business. That's why they all pay dues. Right? So they pay dues, and then there's a hustle because they sell a lot of Masonic knickknacks. There's rings, there's belt buckles. A lot of people don't even know this, but there's shoes. There's house shoes, belts. You see what I'm saying? There's certain things that they wear where other Masons could look at it and be like, okay, that's Mason stuff. It's big business. And when you get a charter, then you're able to make money, but you have to give them a certain amount of money every month. Now, for black people, it was difficult for them to get that from the white Masons, which anybody who know the history of it, they was gifted a version of Masonry which came from Africa, even if you want to cloak it as Egypt, because Egypt was in Africa. They basically trademarked it and put some changes on it, and then throughout time they added Christianity to it due to perhaps the Knights Templar. Okay? So that's when the G started standing for God. I'm not going to go too much into their stuff. And they started being a little Bible heavy. Right? But they'll tell you this isn't a religion. You just have to believe in a higher power. But you could say I'm a Buddhist. Buddha ain't no higher power. That's why, like in the Nation of Islam, I ain't even tell y'all this in in student enrollment 1 through 10, what I was reading last night, they say what's the population of all these other groups outside of Nation of Islam, and they got Buddhism and Christianity. So that's why, like, even Noble Drew Ali, how they accept Buddhism and this and that, because basically, the long story short, they say Buddha isn't a higher power, but you can believe in Buddha. So what Noble Drew Ali did was basically his Moorish Science temples was Masonic lodges. Now, when they was bringing people in and recruiting them, it was structured the same way. To have your own, you can get you a Moorish Science temple, but you got to have a charter. And that's why when you look at the both charters, see, a lot of people don't know, they got the Moorish Science temple And then they got the Moorish Science Temple of America, INC. But see, a lot of people who buy into it, they don't know no better. They never been behind closed doors. So with the Masonic stuff, you got to get a charter for your lodge. People have to be card-carrying members. The Garveyites, card-carrying members. Then if you want a building in your city, you can get you a Garveyite temple with a charter from Marcus Garvey. Noble Drew Ali stole the whole blueprint and added the masonry, and then you work your way in up to becoming a Shriner. And then you can get Noble on your name. So you had to have a charter, and then you had to have your card. Like right now, you could see a whole lot of Moorish Americans, and this is why I refer to them as flops. How you been a Moorish American for 20 years, and you don't even got a card? You don't even know the charter system. Oh, I became a Moorish American in prison. I bet you did. You don't even know how to be no Mason. Now, as they was bringing them in and recruiting them, right? Certain people they didn't deem worthy. So they didn't pull them through that second door and teach them Masonry and work them up as a Shriner. You was just your regular old do what we tell you to do and a number. A casualty collateral movement, as we call it. Basically, you a pawn. You out there to fall on the front line. Collateral movement as opposed to collateral damage. You understand? So they didn't deem them to be worthy of the secrets that need to be kept. So that's all the Moorish Science Temple really is. They was Masonic temples without them having to pay a big charter fee every month to the Grand Lodges in England and the Grand Lodges of Ireland. The white man, as they call it. So, and this is a known fact, Fard Muhammad was taught Moorish science in the penitentiary in California. This is true story. People who the Nation of Islam want to deny it. When he came here to meet Noble Drew Ali to become a member and get his card carrying and all that type of stuff with the Moorish Science Temple, Noble Drew Ali sent him to Detroit. Well, the plan was to send him to Detroit, but they had internal conflict and Noble Drew Ali got killed. So Fard Muhammad went to Detroit and started pushing his form of it, and then he started the Nation of People of the Temple. I can't think of the name of it. It slipped my mind at the time. Elijah Muhammad was one of his first recruits. And he ended up being one of his top things. If you go through and look through the FBI files, right? And see, this is how I got involved with the FBI files. In Illinois, the El Rookins used to be real heavy back in the day, right? The Fort, Jeff Fort, the King of the Stones, and the El Rookins, he had a building here. He bought a movie theater. It was called the Fort. The Fort was a real chartered, legal Moorish Science Temple, right? His uncle, Jeff Fort uncle, you got to look at his age. Jeff Fort uncles, his older people in his family, they ran with Noble Drew Ali now. So that's where he got the Moorish science from. Wallahi, I seen the whole thing of people who had charters. And to see Jeff Fort's name on there as a legal charter, it had the name where you could trace it back, just like I said with McDonald's and the franchise. So he had a real chartered Moorish Science Temple, right? So when they killed the man doing him, Elijah Muhammad, and some other people was trying to do a Masonic ritual, bringing somebody else in, and they accidentally killed the guy. Fard Muhammad had to go on the run for killing the guy while they was trying to do a Masonic ritual. That's when Elijah Muhammad received a letter from him, and they changed the name to the Nation of Islam. But it wasn't nothing but the same thing. That's why, like, when somebody be telling me how heavy they is, oh yeah, I was in the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad, this and that, I ask them flat out, is you a Mason? No. You not as heavy as you thought you was. Because it was the exact same blueprint. Even if you go look at some of the books that Elijah Muhammad wrote, The Secrets of Masonry. Even if you understand Masonry, just like Noble Drew Ali standing up doing this and all this type of stuff, that comes from Masonry. But you see Moors doing it because they see Noble Drew Ali doing it in a picture, and they think it's Moor stuff. It's Masonry. Him standing with his feet on square, you know what I'm saying? Certain particular angles with his feet a certain way. All that came from Masonry. He was a Shriner, and he started his own temples. And that's why when I know real temples right now, I still know people who got them. Right now, I can get in touch with the sister, and they can go through the computer system that they got and pull up who got real charters and who don't. And then everybody with a real charter, they got a list of they members. The Nation of Islam is set up the exact same way. If you got one in your city, then you're chartered. And then you charge your members dues. They pay dues, student enrollment. Just to get into your student enrollment, like the lessons I had, you had to pay. And then when you go through student enrollments, on top of your dues, when you go through student enrollments, then you pay for your next lessons. Lost Found Muslim lessons, Supreme Wisdoms. And then if you're not a kid and they deem you worthy, they pull you through that second door and teach you Masonry. So that's what it all really is. So like when you understand Masonry and you understand the concepts, like and through the War of Deen community where they took from the Nation of Islam, do y'all know that in Al-Islam, and this is a lot of this is due to Yusuf Ali. See, in the Yusuf Ali translate, a lot of people don't know this, but Yusuf Ali had translations out in the 1950s and 1955, possibly even the 1940s. A lot of people not aware of that. In his older translations, when they talked about Jannah and Jahannam, heaven and the hellfire, in the footnotes, Yusuf Ali said that heaven and hell wasn't a real place. They concepts. What do the Nation of Islam teach? And then when you understand, when you walk through the doors of Masonry, there's a heaven and a hell, but they on earth. They conditions. You understand? Anybody who understands real Moor Science Temple, heaven and hell is a condition. Some of them even refer to it as your higher self and your lower self. You drawing off your lower self, you in hell. And your life gonna become hell. You draw off your higher self, you in heaven. And then you'll have heaven on earth. Nation of Islam teaches the exact same thing. And some of the War of Deen community, before people started to learn that there was some real Islam and they leave and started studying, some of them left War of Deen, but then some of them brought the teachers back to War of Deen because they still wanted to build something for black people. So they have War of Deen and have Sunni. But some of them, they believe, just like my man, if he willing to admit it, he'll probably, I don't know if he still believe that. And I don't know how heavy he was in the Nation of Islam. I know he said he was raised up in it. His father was in it. But then he should know that there is no heaven or hell with the Nation of Islam. They conditions. And when you die, you just die. Or some of them believe that death is hell. Some War of Deen members who was deep into that Nation of Islam, they still had the same teachers, but guess what they called it? Al-Islam. Al-Islam. And I know, like I said, I'm in Illinois. I can't say what some of the people who thought in Alabama and Mississippi, but right here in their stomping grounds, it's in their teachings. See, a lot of people don't know. Back in the day, the Wharf Dean, they actually had teachings, literature, the same way the Moorish Science Temple has literature, the same way the Nation of Islam has literature. And a lot of their literature was picked and choose through certain things from the Nation of Islam. They took out the white man is a devil concept. That's why, like right now, even when you look at the Nation of Islam now as they progress, you don't hear them talking about the white man as a devil publicly like that no more. They've restructured it. Okay? But if he's willing to admit it, the Nation of Islam and some Wharf Dean members, a lot of the older ones, they had that same belief. There is no Jannah. And guess what they call it? Al-Islam. And that's why it be bugging me out, man, when I hear these Muslims, man, who the bulk of their Islam came from penitentiary talking about they follow Al-Islam. B, you don't even know what Al-Islam is. Unless you don't believe that Jannah is real, that Jahannam, the hellfire, is real. You believe they conditions on earth. You living a good life with your wife and kids. You in heaven. You know what I'm saying? You drawing off your lower self and you having a problem, your wife giving you problem, this and that. Your life is hell right now. Huh? These sayings. This is their beliefs, man. This is their beliefs. And some Wharf Dean members, and the way my man feel about that stuff, when you say something about that, he always in defense of it. And that, alhamdulillah, that's where he come from. That's what he know. Right? I ask him, is hell and heaven just a condition on earth? Is there a real Jannah? You know what I'm saying? See, a lot of y'all don't know about these teachings, man. I could pull up their literature. I had it for years. I had to learn it as a 5%er. Like I said, I never believed in none of it. But one thing that I learned, but see, this is the beauty with me, and I'll give y'all this jewel and I'm going to close out. When I sat behind closed doors with the Moors, the real ones, with chartered temples, wallahi, Allah is my witness, they was giving me the thing where I could sell the cards. Right? I was supposed to sell the cards for $175, and I give them $25 off each card I sell. And then they sent me the template, but over the template, it had some words over it. So you couldn't print the cards out. They gave me the whole hustle. How you just go get the business cards, right? Print it out on a business card and then put some laminate around it so that it's a firm card, like a business card. And then you just put laminate around it. You put the plastic around it through the sealer. Okay? And then when I get them the $25, they'll take it off and then I can make the cards. And then with my charter was, because the way that they wanted me to work with them, my charter was going to be $150 a month. And then my dues fees was $30, right? I charge $30 a month for dues, and I send them $5 and keep $25. So I send them $5 off every member, a list of every member who registered, and then I get them $150 a month for my charter. Well, I did have to pay an initial first $500 fee for the charter, then $150 a month. But if I get enough members and I sell enough cards, and then, so this is what I'm saying, they gave me the hustle. No, Noble Drew Ali wasn't no prophet. No. But what he did was gave us a hustle. That's why when you see real Moors who in a real temple, they got something to sell. That's why when you look at Elijah Muhammad and who came up with the blueprint, they always had something to sell. Newspaper, books, lapel pens, like the Masons. A little pin that you put on your left or right side with a half moon, as opposed to a Masonic symbol or something like that. Nation of Islam rings instead of a Masonic ring. Suits, bow ties, just like with the Masons. Aprons, regalias. They always got something to sell. I see Moors right now who be talking about they Moors. Where your Moors stuff to sell? Because they don't understand. And then your nationality ties you to a nation. So the Nation of Islam means what? I'm a member of the Nation of Islam. I'm a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, which is, it wasn't always Moorish Science Temple of America. It started off Moorish Science Temple. That's why I say you will see Moorish Science Temple, INC, and you'll see Moorish Science Temple of America, INC. But they don't have nothing to sell but conversation that I ain't buying. They ain't got no Circle 7 Qurans for sale. So that's, in due tale, that's all it is. It's masonry, cloaked under a different name so that they don't have to spend money, send money to United Grand Lodges in England and all that. Now you actually have Grand Lodges and stuff in America, so you really technically pay your Grand Lodge here for your charter. So right now, the main headquarters of the Moorish Science Temple, under their ruling, where they got 3 temples or whatever, and then they come together and form a grand lodge, which is the Grand Masonic Temple, and these 3 govern all of the 50 states, or what they consider to be landmarks, if they not all 50 states, just like the Masons. And then whoever got real temples there, they under some type of structure where they charter and their constitution, just like the Masons, they got a constitution. It's the exact same thing. And that's what the Nation of Islam is. Some people who able to work themselves up to be worthy, they let them in, and then some of them don't, and they just be what they consider to be collateral movement. They pawns, they security, they door knockers. Y'all know what them door knockers is. Man, that brother Malcolm, man, he done became a problem. Y'all go over there and knock on his door. You know what I'm saying? Y'all go over there and knock on his door. You know what I'm saying? Handle anything that answer. For those who understand what that means, go over there and knock on his door, and if anybody answer, handle that too. For anybody who understand what that means. So some people, when I listen to them and this and that, some of y'all was groomed to be door knockers. You know what I'm saying? Going over there, man, you know, we need y'all to knock on some doors. We need y'all to go door to door and tell these individuals, hey, we got a temple on this block. If y'all want to have a business over here, I suggest you pay for some fire insurance. For those who understand what that means. Now, we not talking about paying an insurance company. You buy your fire insurance from us, and you won't have no fires. That's what it is. Now, when we talking about in these days, yeah. So the suits, that's the Marcus Garvey movement, man. The mafia type stuff. You see a lot of the mob members, boy, they dress like businessmen. Because they is doing business. Elijah Muhammad now was the black mafia, bro. So I just wanted to touch that. So that just answered about Noble Drew Ali, what made him noble, because he was a Shriner. Then when you have honorable on your name, sometimes, one moment. So in certain forms of masonry, when you get up into the 30 degrees and different things, this is not all of them, but some of them, when you get to a certain level, they put honorable on your name. That's why now you got the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Some refer to him as illustrious because some of them treat Masonry as a career. He had an illustrious career. Illustrious career. That means you done touched 32, 33. And back in the day, so like right now in America, a lot of the Masons, they had to go through certain Eurocentric degrees. So they got to go through like Scottish rites, York rites. I'm not going to name a lot of them. But see, back in the door, like a lot of people don't know this, you actually have what's referred to in Masonry as the Moorish rites. So basically, your first Masonry, of course, you got your entered apprentice. Then you got your fellow craft. So that's your first 2 degrees. Then on your 3rd degree, if you pass that, then you are technically a master Mason. You're officially a Mason at the first 3 degrees. So then from to go to 4 on work your way up to become a Shriner, then you have rites. Some people refer to them as, and I could say it don't make no difference. They really rites of passage. What rite are you going to choose to pass up to nobility? But these are a lot of older terms. So you actually have what's called Moorish rites. Who was teaching Moorish rites in Masonry so that you can become up to a 30-something degree. So that you can work your way up to be a Shriner. The Moorish Temple of Science, i.e. the Moorish Science Temple. Because you learning, when you go through Masonry, I ain't gonna go through that, but then when you get to a certain level, you start to learn sciences. So it's the Moorish Temple of Science or the Moorish Science Temple. So that's what made him a noble man. He was a Shriner. That's what make them honorable and illustrious, because they done touched 30. They done went to 30 degrees and above in Masonry through certain levels of rites. So like I said, a lot of people right now, they have to, because you have to go somewhere. They want you to go to a temple that's chartered, that's in good standings. They not expelled. They haven't been kicked out with the Grand Lodges or whatever. Like all of them. It ain't like now you can get kicked out from this Grand Lodge and then go to a different one. Like you kicked out of the Grand Lodge of England, then you can go to the Grand Lodge of France if they accept you type stuff. Grand Lodge in Africa might accept you. Okay? These things, they're United Grand Lodges. So you have to go through a chartered temple to learn the rites. And because a lot of these people tied into Eurocentric Masonry, they generally go on Scottish rites, York rites. But see, some of the other ones, so like some of them, when you see the way they moving and how they talk, and you understand their rites from ritual, you can be like, okay. That's why, like right now, even with the right Shriners, if you look at their hats, they have Arabic terminologies on them. See, you end up becoming a Muslim when you become a Shriner. They walk you over and teach you Islam, right? A lot of them, that's why they start giving up pork. They have to. But, it ain't forced up on them. Some of them start going to masjids. They start going to Jumu'ah service. Yeah. Yeah. One of their main greetings, it cracked me up. Their greetings be Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. Shriners. They even have a Hajj ritual. That's all I'm going to say. They even have a ritual of Hajj. Now, and I'm going to close with this because this ain't got too long. Elijah Muhammad, as he got to a certain level, it was a lot of things in Masonry that he kind of didn't like. Some of them, some of them do some hazing. Some of them mistreat people and treat people like flunkies. Like, what they call them, man? Like, let's say you make it to the NBA and you're a rookie. And they make you carry everybody bags and, play jokes on you and do a bunch of little weirdo, creepy stuff like y'all not grown men. Some forms of Masonry be childish like that. Elijah Muhammad didn't like a lot of that little hazing, little goofy, make you get butt naked and put a bunch of lotion on you and videotape you. Weirdo stuff, dress you up like, put a ball in your mouth and all type of stuff. Like I said, I don't know if that's what they do, but it was some things that Elijah didn't like in that. So he kind of removed some of that stuff and they moved you up through the Nation of Islam and teach you the rituals. So yeah. So that's really the whole gist of it and the truth of it. You know what I'm saying? So like through the War of Deen, a lot of them cats who came through the Nation of Islam, who they deemed worthy, they really Masons, man. They really Masons. That's why like right now you could see pictures of Farrakhan with all his regalia and all that type of stuff on him in Prince Hall. And then they making him an honorary member. So you honorable. We blessing you with these certain levels of degrees in our lives, but you earned them in another one. All you got to do is look at them. Look at their stances. A lot of it is Masonry. And these is just facts. But it's not every single member because they don't deem everybody members. Some people just collateral movement. They dues payers. They paying for student enrollment lessons. They paying, just like in Masonry, you got to pay for your degrees. And you got to pay your dues. You know what I'm saying? And then some of you got to be collateral movement. Stand around and be a goofy because we said so. Collateral movement. But so like I say, man, brother, I don't want to beef with you. Matter of fact, I got a request. I got to drink something because somebody said some things to me, so I got to show them. Let me drink some. So now after I drunk something, well, I guess I do still kind of sound the same. For the people who we have some things, they talking about say some AOU and all this other type of stuff. But anyway, brother, I don't want to beef with you, man. If I'm discussing something or answering some questions, man, it's not a personal knock to you. If you want to love Elijah Muhammad and all that type of stuff, that's cool, man. But I'm just not going to agree that it's real Islam because it's not. And I'm not going to agree that he was a messenger, that Allah sent him to teach all this shirk. Did he do something good for black people in America? Yeah. Did Noble Drew Ali have something that probably would have helped black people in America? Yeah. So does the Black Church. So does the Boys Club. So does the Mason. So does black fraternities. Do that mean it came from Allah Azza wa Jal? No, it doesn't. Because I tell you one thing for sure and two things for certain. Whatever they bring, Islam, real Islam, not that Al-Islam stuff that they made up. Real Islam, Quran and Sunnah, got something better for black people. All over the world, white people and everything else too. So whatever they got that's supposed to be helpful, it still diminishes when it comes to real Islam. And like I said, when you go to start studying these things and look at these things, you will see a lot of the stuff that's batil from beginning to end, it just seemed like the black Muslim group picked it up. Just like the Salafiyas. We'll kick you out. We'll kick you off the minhaj. You kicked off. You kicked out of being Muslim. Just like the same with the Nation of Islam. Just like the same with the Masons. Just like the same with the Gariites. Just like the same with the Moorish Science Temple. You can get kicked out. Don't pay your dues. Don't pay your dues for 3 months and you're not an outstanding member. Brother, you suspended. Brother, you expelled indefinitely. Like Malcolm X. That's why, like, when they try to do the same thing to Muhammad Ali and kicked him out. And Muhammad Ali saying one of his famous little speeches to him. Respectfully, to Elijah, how you gonna kick me out of being a Muslim? You understand? That's stuff you could be kicked out of. That right there should let you know. That's something, if you don't follow the rules, they at court. Just like the Masonry. They could bring each other, as a Moorish American, you could bring each other up on charges. Just like the Masonic temples. It's Masonry. Man, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.